So hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Fiction Star. Let's begin to the new series. The series name is What If Naruto Fall in Love with Chifusa Manu. So let begin to the story. A man suddenly woke up with a start, and winced at the awful pain that gripped his body. It was so dark that he could not even see his hand in front of his own face, thankfully. His eyes gradually adjusted and his vision returned as he commenced on the exploration his current location. As he looked around, he found himself in what looks like a large ancient cavern. There were seal arrays written on the floor where he laid. He slowly stood up, though an even worse pain as another jolt of electricity coursing through his whole body welcomed him warmly. Then in a moment of clarity, he remembered everything, the fact that his life was ruined and that the one he called a very dear friend, no, a brother, had betrayed him along with the entire village he used to live in. He also recalled how his childhood crush laughed at his honest words of love and spat at them, how she said that he was not human. Therefore he was a monster and was beneath them as she spat at him. She said that she could never love him as she was in love with his so-called brother. He was finally about to be Hokage too, however. The people of Konoha refused to take him seriously, saying that their weapon, their Jinchuriki, cannot be their Hokage and leader. Their words stung even now, as they called him a demon. He was no longer a human, as a consequence will never be Hokage. After all, now that the war was over and his usage was concluded, he had been reduced to nothing but a mere slave demon, a weapon for Konoha to play with and command like a chained dog. To avoid getting a headache, he pushed the morbid thoughts away in order to properly look for the cave's exit. 2 to 3 minutes later, there was a pale light at the end of the tunnel. The hooded masked shinobi in the cave shook his head in an attempt to remove these horrid memories, but it was of no use. He walked out of the cave as he noticed that it was at night, and a full moon shined its lovely pale light on the forest that surrounded the mouth of the cave. He was a tall young man in his late teen or early 20s. He was about 6 feet, 2 inches, tall, which was very tall, and had a perfectly muscular build that fit his height and profession. Therefore, he was muscular but not over the top. More like his muscles looked condensed, giving him 20 times more strength than the average shinobi back in his home. He was wearing a crimson kitsune face mask and had covered his head with the hood of his coat. He took off the mask and hood, as did not need it anymore. The young man had golden blonde hair and the sharpest, most brilliant sapphire fox-like blue eyes you might have ever seen. He had 3 whisker-like lines on each side of his cheeks, as well as pearly white sharp teeth, fangs, and a strong jaw, giving him an even more animalistic look. He also had long shoulder-length hair, with his bangs seeming like they could hide his eyes behind them if he wanted to. He wore a black hataite across his forehead like a bandana, keeping his long bangs from obscuring his vision. It consisted of a metal plate with symbol of a leaf with a spiral engraved in the center, and long durable black cloth. It had a slash on the symbol that showed he was a Nukenin. His attire consisted of a long-sleeved, hooded black coat. Underneath the coat was standard ANBU Black Ops uniform consisting of black and gray armor covered by a black flak jacket, metal arm guards, fingerless metal-plated gloves, and black shinobi sandals. His arm guards glowed a lit blue color as special seals similar to the ones in the cave appeared over them, causing them retract and change into a simple, but shiny, metal shackles around his wrists. He was also wearing 2 weapon pouches on his back waist and a large scroll attached to his lower back. He sighed as he remembered his battle with his parents' murderer, the masked man. Flashback. It was the 3rd night of the 4th World War and had already reached the peak of it. A young man of the age of 16 or 17 stood with 2 older men in front of a uniquely masked man. This man was the one responsible for ruining his life. The masked man had a unique and annoying skill, as he could not take any physical damage and was a master in Jikuken ninjutsu. Naruto had defeated him, but that came with a terrible price. Hatake Kakashi, his sensei, had died protecting him and unleashed his anger, making his unstable chakra even more unstable, causing an unprecedented chain reaction. His chakra was already potent due to the help of his lifelong companion, Kurama the Kyuubi. He was there from the moment his mother had him to the moment of his birth, as he was sealed and said mother, also known as Uzumaki Kushina. Then again, his parents Namikaze Minato and his mother sealed Kurama in him on the day of his birth as to protect both Konoha and Naruto from the masked man. However, what they did not know was that the child of a Jinchuriki happened to be partly demonized as an after-effect of the Biju potent chakra during their mother's pregnancy, meaning that if said child was to be the next Jinchuriki, he or she would have more of the Biju-esque characteristics, and therefore become truly demonic in nature. This made his body and chakra is much stronger than the average ninja, to the point that people would say that the Kyuubi demonized him. The factor that helped in the transformation was strangely his Uzumaki Kekkei Genkai that he did not even know he had. When Naruto had mastered his control on Kurama's chakra, it had triggered the transformation, and slowly but surely, his DNA along with his body had been forever altered. Just when the masked man was about to land the killing blow, the blonde genin activated what looked like a new dojutsu, which released Kurama, who helped him, which released the demonic fox long enough to help him strike at the masked man and successfully destroy his body. Normally, his eyes changed color due to the use of Kurama's crimson chakra. However, the new dojutsu was the same pair of eyes, except he can turn them on whenever he liked and did not need Kurama's chakra for them to work. Then Naruto released the external part of the seal, setting Kurama free, surprising the demonic kitsune. He told that he would not have his nakama in prison for something that was not his fault, and that he had already taken his hate with him. Kurama thanked Naruto, promised to protect what Naruto held precious, and then vanished. Naruto returned to the village and kept Kurama's freedom a secret from everyone. After a while, Naruto returned Uchiha Sasuke to the village and completed one of his goals. Naruto had to train in secret as to control his demonic urges and new dojutsu as to not harm his friends and comrades. These eyes even had a set of abilities following the characteristics of a kitsune, like creating powerful illusions, reading the mind of people, controlling people, and even enticing females, and making them fall in love with him. He named them kitsunetsuki, spirit possession, because they can control people just like how a kitsune possesses young women in legends. He can even change and control reality. Then he made it to Chunin and was granted access to his family techniques, therefore the Hiraishin no Jutsu and Uzumaki Ninjutsu and Fuinjutsu. He even learned the famous Chakra no Kusari Jutsu, chakra chains technique, that his mother had, and found it easy to learn, as he did not have Kurama's chakra messing his control. His control skyrocketed to that par of Sakura and Tsunade, therefore able to use Iryo Ninjutsu, medical ninja techniques, without a hitch, but the problem was with the reading part that he had to suffer a lot. Tsunade Abakan was a slave driver and was nothing like that Jiraiya was. By the age of 18, Naruto had become a Jonin, and by 19, he became an ANBU captain alongside friend Uchiha Sasuke. Even Tsunade had named him as her successor in the event something would happen to her. During his appointment as the next Hokage the village, Sasuke found out about the Kyuubi sighted around the central mountains of the Land of Fire. He went directly to village elders and told them, which they tried to apprehended Naruto for treason. He escaped and took everything he owned and sealed it the large scroll he had and ran. Let me say it one more time, they tried. Sasuke tried to capture him along with Sakura, along with members of Konoha no Juchinin, Konoha 11. But that failed obviously, but he had to fight all of them in order to escape. They caught him about west of Konoha, almost at the ocean, and they had surrounded him. He certainly didn't want to be caught. By answering their questions to buy himself time, he kept them distracted and ultimately managed to surprise them with a technique of his own. He laughed as they struggled to get free, and he told them that these chains were the same chains that held the Kyuubi himself, so they could not break them at all. He said, Chakra no Kusari is a jutsu only certain Uzumaki can do, like my mother Uzumaki Kushina, who was the wife of our Yandame Hokage Namikaze Minato, and also my father. Also, unlike the Uchiha team, I am not a person who seeks out revenge. I have already forgiven the village for what they had done to me. However, none of you will ever see or hear of me ever again, so this goodbye, my friends. He sighed sadly, as he looked at Hinata also. Hinata-chan, I do hope you can forgive me, seeing that I can't stay. However, you should be aware that it wouldn't work between us. But please enjoy your life. You'll find someone who will return your love, one day. But I'm not the man for you. He walked over to her, removing his kitsune mask, and kissed her delicately on her forehead, and smiled. By the way, I am a Kage Bunshin, and boss had already arrived at his targeted location, so sayonara Mina. So long everyone, said the now revealed smirking Bunshin as it bowed and vanished in a puff of smoke as it heard Sasuke's screaming in anger. At the same time, Yuzuno Kuni, Naruto was working on a huge complex seal array he was making in a shrine in the ruins of Yuzushiogakure no Sato. This specific shrine was a hidden laboratory for the study of Jakuken Fuinjutsu. He found out about this place from Erosenin's information scroll he had inherited from the pervert old-timer. He had finished the seal's array and was only going through with a final check. He was going to attempt a new form of Jikoken Fuinjutsu, and it had to be perfect or else he was a goner. Then he flinched as he received the memory feedback from the clone he had left to delay his pursuers. He had sure that the self-destruction seal was ready as well, as he did not want anyone to duplicate this array and use it for whatever purpose it is that wanted. He made sure one last time and then started with the experiment. He prayed to Kami-sama to help him, as he did not want to die. He wore his mask and hood to allow him to concentrate on his certain work. He stepped to the center of the large complex seal array and sat on the ground in a lotus position as he started to relax himself first. When he knew that he was ready, he whispered, "Okay, here goes nothing." He started a couple of hand seals, which in turn activated in a bright white light as he waited and whispered in a calm voice, "Fuin o Cassii. Seal activate." He then began to perform the necessary hand seals at a rapid pace, and as he reached the final seal, he yelled Jikoken Fuinjutsu, Jiku ni Yori Yuso, space-time sealing technique, transportation through time-space. The white light brightened so much that Naruto had to close his eyes. As he still needed them, he started to hear a ringing sound followed by pain, not simple injury pain. Oh no, it was the most excruciating pain he had ever had the displeasure of feeling. He felt like his body torn to pieces and crushed back together all at the same time. When he could not take any more pain, his mind fell into unconsciousness to save him of the pain. Flashback ended. Naruto now needed to know where he was, so he needs to find humans if there are any in this dimension. He sat down in the usual position for meditating, the full lotus meditating stance. He began to slow his breathing and heartbeat rate, and concentrated on his inner balance. He felt the usual warm rush of power signifying Senin mode was active. He began to show signs of entering the Senin mode, namely his golden yellow irises, horizontal bar-like toad pupils, and reddish-orange pigmentation around his eyes. There was an abundant amount of Shurzen energy, natural energy, here almost the same as back home. Since he was not in the middle of battle, he can sense every living thing for over 50 kilometers away. He sensed a large city filled with hundreds of people about 30 or so kilometers away south of his current location. He sensed a smaller town halfway. He got up and started to do a bit of stretching exercises so he can lumber up his still pain-filled body. He then said, "Kami-sama, thank you for giving me this new chance on life." What he did not know was the fact that he was going to love this place. Checking his body before leaving the cave, noticed that the damage was equally distributed, meaning that his entire body, even to the cellular level, almost like what his futon, Raisin Shuriken, does. Thus, he could not use chakra for a while. He was lucky. It could have easily killed him. Then again, his demonic powers that kept him alive. His body had been under a lot of gravitational force due to the dimensional barriers between his home world and here. All he will need to do is sleep while his body heals itself using his chakra's healing property. He placed his mask and hood on, jumped to trees, and began his journey, tree hopping at full speed to the closer village first. 10 minutes later, he landed on the ground with a silent thud as he closed on the entrance of the smaller village. He found the village streets empty of life. However, there were lit candles in the house, meaning that the civilians had entered their homes for the night. The empty streets looked even eerier due to the moon's pale silver light. Nevertheless, he could see as if it was in the afternoon, simply thanks to his demonic gifts. He walked the hollow streets of the town, but he could feel eyes on him and could sense a lot of movement all around the little town. He ignored it as he kept walking. Though he stayed alert in case something was about to happen, he did not know anything about this place, and would need to be careful as to not be surprised. As he reached the center of town, he noticed that he found himself surrounded by what looked like bandits. They had cleverly blocking his way from every direction. Then the leader, or more likely the strongest idiot of the gang, stepped forward and shouted, "Good evening, Miss Hirano-san, Mr. Stranger. Welcome to our humble town, and please hand over everything you own, and we might just let you live with the clothes on you back." Naruto sighed and thought, "At least they speak the same language as me." He then said rhetorically, "And if I refuse?" The leader smiled as signaled his men to take out and ready their weapons, which they did. However, this did not even faze the masked man. Then Naruto pulled out a sheathed katana out of thin air, scaring the bandits. It had a black saya, scabbard, with a black tsuba, cross guard, has 4 prongs bent out to form the shape of the manji, while the tsuka, hilt, was wrapped in a black and crimson cloth finished with a black, metallic kashira, but cap. Naruto placed the sheathed sword on his shoulder as he said, I will give you guys to the count of 3 to get you filthy, ugly faces out of my way, or I will slaughter all of you. As the eye holes of his mask glowed an eerie scarlet burn through the so-called leader's skull, he did not want to fight now as he was very tired and body was still in pain from the dimensional jutsu. Therefore, Naruto reasoned to scare them, and he released a concentrated freezing amount of killing intent to the leader, freezing him in place. The terrified man could not even lift a finger as Naruto suddenly appeared in face, scaring the other gang members. Naruto released a potent blast of killing intent that had overridden their logic, making them flee like headless chickens. Naruto had grabbed the leader by the neck as he activated his dojutsu and began to interrogate him while reading his mind to get accurate information on this world. Naruto laughed as he knocked the criminal and began to think about what he had just heard. Who would have thought that there would be a world like this? Any pervert's dream world. He shook his head as he mentally had a debate with himself. Seriously, what kind of world is this? Women with large breasts are guaranteed wealth and fortune, while the people condemn women with small breasts. Erosenin would have loved it here, but I will have to do something about this. This is fucking ridiculous. All this because of this ruling made by this Tokugawa shogunate. Breasts mean everything. There is even a clan of ninja that protect this rule, who secretly are ruling this country, Japan, and they are the Manyu clan. The larger city I sensed earlier seemed to be Kyoto. However, Edo is the capital city and therefore, the Manyu main residence would logically be there, which in turn can help me find their hidden village. He sighed as an evil smirk appeared on his hidden face. New world or not, I'm still in need of money. Fortunately though, I know how to obtain some. Naruto walked out of the smaller village with a rather large smile plastered on his masked face. He used the demonic dojutsu to see and read the mind of the stupid leader. He found that they had hid all the cash and valuables in a nearby hideout. Naruto was surprised at the amount of money and took a very large chunk of their ill-acquired wealth, which actually meant all of it. He then sealed it his trusty sealing scroll. What to do when I reached the city Kyoto? Thought Naruto as he began to jump and tree-hop to the much larger city. City of Kyoto. The way to the city of Kyoto was uneventful and he entered the city rather easily. He reached the city in 20 minutes after leave the smaller one, of course. He had to run at high speed while ignoring the pain aching from his injured body. He noticed that there was night guards at the gates and therefore walking in is impossible, as he cannot use any ninjutsu yet. He jumped up the wall from the tree he was on and began to run roof to roof silently. He continued until he reaches what looked like business district and saw an open inn called the White Lotus. The innkeeper, who was a young woman in her mid-20s, welcomed him in. She had brown hair in a particular style with identically brown eyes, a kind smile, and an appallingly beautiful face. Then came the surprising shock. She was as big as Anko-san in the breast department, as she wore an emerald kimono that revealed a lot of cleavage. He mentally shook his head out of the gutter. He had not removed his mask or hood yet, causing the woman to be curious as to what he had to hide. "Excuse me, miss, but do you by any chance have a room available for the night?" asked the masked man. "Certainly, sir. We do have one room left that should be enough for your visit." He nodded as he pulled out a small pouch and paid for the week along with the meals for said week. He asked about the bath as one of the staff's an ordinary girl. Black hair and eyes with a mid-C cup breasts that showed him the way. He noticed that the people here have rather plain shades of hair like black, brown, and gray. He patted himself on the shoulder for not lowered his hood yet. He would stick out more than a sore thumb, and he did not need that type of attention now. After taking a warm bath, he went to his rented room and found his dinner ready for him. He ate his dinner that involved a medium-sized bowl of plain white steamed rice, a dish of meat, with a bowl of miso soup and pickled vegetables. A humble and filling meal as he could tell, but he would have loved if they had ramen. Oh well, not everything in life is given to you so easily, thought Naruto as he hit the sack, but not before closing and securing the room and placing several security seals. Naruto slept with thoughts of what to do, now that he had escaped Konoha and is in another world. It was the afternoon of the next day. He had already eaten his breakfast and even went to the forest to train. His body had healed completely, enabling him to use chakra again. He had to control his lust and demonic instincts to mate and dominate females. He had to take a lot of cold showers and meditating to calm down those urges, due to the amount of beautiful women around him. His demonic instinct to dominate and mate was burning red-hot, driving him insane. It all started when Innkeeper went and saw a glimpse of his face without his mask, and she started to flirt with him so he could remove that mask of his. She would press her generous bust onto his arms, chest, and back as if falling on him by mistake. He would have trouble as she would accidentally touch his package. Then she would walk with a small wiggle to her hips. She even came to his room to give him his food herself to see his face again. However, what shocked her was he could eat even with the mask on. She asked him how and he answered smiling, "It is a secret." He left the inn to investigate this city and the Manu ninja. He needed to make a starting base for his information gathering and future spy network. He would need to buy a building, which must be either a restaurant or brothel. He was not like his sensei, so he will make a restaurant chain, preferably a ramen restaurant, and then use them as safe houses for him and his spies. The way of this world, they should be women, as he could easily charm them and add them to his network. He would need to start from Kyoto and work his way to the other cities and towns in the country. He started to study the people to see if they are any different from the civilians of his home world first. He noted that the people here had so little chakra that it just enough for them to live and nothing more. He also noticed that this world was very different from his world, as they were not as advanced as his world. The men came in the typical types. Civilians who were poor peasants, merchants with expensive clothes, and samurai had their typical clothes but with weird hairstyles. The women were very different, as only busted women walked with pride bordering arrogance, while the unfortunate small-breasted women walked with their heads down in shame. Well-endowed women here were more carefree about their bodies but still hold a great deal of importance to the size of their breasts. When he walked outside, he would notice that some women had pairs that were much bigger than even Tsunade Abakan. They would wear very revealing and showy kimonos showing their bust and cleavage to everyone. He could even hear their breasts bouncing and slapping at each other, making very perverted sound. Being the hot-blooded young man that he was, even this was a bit too much. His nose instigated to bleed and heat up along with very tight underwear. He thought with a blush, Sakura would have dyed her of shame. Oh, even Tsunade Abakan would be very jealous too. Ha ha ha. Nevertheless, even though this any pervert's dream, including me, I hate how they treat the women with smaller breasts. It reminds me of how they treated me back in that village. I have to find a way to change this. Then he got an idea, but he will need a volunteer for his experiment. He had seen a poor flat-chested woman begging with her baby. She was wearing a dirty brown old kimono while her child wore a gray blanket. He walked to her, kneeled down to her line of sight, and said, "Hello there, I need your help and I will pay you handsomely. I hope your husband will appreciate." She surprised a man of the higher class to talk to her, and she whispered a reply, "He is dead, good sir." He nodded in apology, and took out a small bag of gold coins to show her if she could not believe him. "Don't worry. You can take child with you as well. First come with me. I know you are hungry and would need a bath." Indiana edition. If what I need you for works, you will never be poor again. By the way, my name is Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, but please call me Naruto. Thank you, Naruto-sama. My name is Fumiko and this is my son, Takato-chan. We don't have a last name as my husband died and his family kicked us out of our home. Naruto was about growl but suppressed it as to not scare the young woman. They walked back to the inn where he asked the innkeeper to help the young mother and child. She gave them a bath and new clothes as well as food, which of course paid by the masked man. The masked man called her to his room and said, "What I need from you is to help me with my experiment, then I will give you a job, thus you will be financially secure for as long as you live. Therefore, I will ask you this only one time and one time only. Do you accept it and become my loyal servant, to do as I say and will?" She gasped at what he said and replied, "Yes, Naruto-sama. I am honored that you need my help." She bowed, but Naruto said, "There is no need to bow, just come here and show me your chest." She gasped and blushed as she slowly did as he said. Naruto saw her A-cup bust and started to examine it with his eyes. She did not meet his eyes and he said, "Please come and sit here." She did, and then Naruto pulled out an odd-looking marble-sized ball with a cup of water. He said, "Eat this and we will begin in a few." She swallowed the pill along with the help of the water. She felt nothing and she asked, "What was that, which I have just eaten, Naruto-sama?" "Oh, that? My grandmother made it, and it is highly concentrated energy pill. However, the one you ate is a much diluted one which I have created," said Naruto with a reminiscing smile. He then said, "Oh, by the way, you will feel a blast of energy right about now." As she gasped, her eyes widened, she felt energy bursting from the body. She felt so hot, and her mind went completely blank before she fainted. Naruto caught her before she fell to the floor. He laid her on his futon bed. He began to form seals in high speed. His whisper Ninpo, Shozen Jutsu. As green flames rippled and danced on his hand, he noticed her muscles and bones were also underdeveloped, so he added chakra to strengthen them. He then placed his hands on her underdeveloped chest. He massaged and circled her chest with his hands, making her body glow. He found out that body was not using her own energy efficiently, so he corrected the flow of her energy using his chakra to her entire body. He moved his hands to her stomach, healing her as he discovered some kind of after-birth disease. After healing the body, he moved to the cosmetic part of his experiment. He placed his hand on her temple and on her lower stomach and made a couple of chakra pulses to activate the hormone production. He thanked Tsunade had force-fed him about the male and female body along with sex and reproduction when he studied about the human anatomy, though. He could not even look at any female in the eye without subconsciously stripping them naked. He shook his head, for this was no time to daydream. He began to check her body again. He just helped her body fix itself. As his chakra began to build, move, and use the new fat deposit from the food that she ate as well as the food pill, he gave her body rub-down, as it would improve the circulation of her blood and energy. He then stopped the technique on his left hand as he added his own healing chakra to her body. The chakra began to engorge in her growing bust and hips as it began to perfect her figure. She even grew a couple of centimeters in height as well as her bones corrected themselves. He then went to her face as he noticed a couple bruises and discolorations from old abuse. He began to reverse the damage done first. Then he corrected any of her cracks or scars on her face. He made it as if she was never touched there to begin. His chakra had finished its job and he stopped the flow, leaving her body in a perfect condition. He noticed her bust had grown to about a perfect D-cup. He remembered that she had recently given birth and therefore the child would need her breast milk. He grabbed her breasts and massaged them as he adds a bit of his chakra to stimulate her milk production. Her breasts began to swell again as her areolae began to widen and darken a bit. Her nipples swollen as a milky white liquid leaked out. Her pair was lactating as grew to about a plump and full E-cup. Naruto smiled, as his experiment was a success, and he would have an ally for life. He walked over the child's crib and held him in his arms as he examined him. He noticed the child was between the ages of 3 weeks to a month or so. He was healthy even if he was a bit underfed. All he would need his mother's rich milk, and he would be all right. However, as a precaution he added his chakra to the child as to increase its overall health and body structure. He placed the sleeping baby back in its crib. Naruto noticed something and it was bugging him. He thought to himself, why did I bother to help this woman to this extent? I am a ninja, not a doctor, but the medical information here is very old and traditional. She could have died and leaving the child an orphan. I have seen enough of orphans and dead parents. If I am to change the state of the country and its people, I have to do something about the ruling parties. Then what? I am nothing more than an assassin and can't rule a nation. However, I have already taken a page from Erosenin's book, but I need a steady supply of money first, and then a spy network based here in Kyoto, then branches to the rest of Japan. He will need to control the Manyu clan first, and then eliminate the shogunate, and reinstate the emperor. He nodded, as that would be his first objective. He walked to the young mother on his bed and shook her awake. She woke up as she cutely yawned and stretched her body. She never felt like this before. It was as if she was reborn again, but then she felt an odd weight on her chest. She looked down as she saw a pair of boobs staring back at her. She was stunned silent as tears began to well in her eyes and sobs began. "Oh, don't tell me you don't like them?" said Naruto jokingly. "Oh no, Naruto-sama, I love them. It's just that you have been so nice to me and I don't know how to pay you back for your kindness," replied Fumiko as she let loose the waterworks. "As I told you before, I have a job for you, but first feed you baby as you can now," said the smirking masked man. She gasped as she touched her pair and confirmed that they are real and it was not just a dream. She crawled to her baby's crib, as she was not used to her now large breasts. She lifted her gently as any mother would her child and noticed he had waked up. She began to breastfeed him as she cried tears of joy. The baby did not fathom anything. He happily began to suck on his mother's nipple, feeding his hunger. "Naruto-sama, not to sound rude, but what are you? Why help me? And how did you do it?" asked the mother. Naruto smiled sadly at her and replied, I am a doctor and I can't bear to see a mother hungry with her child, and plus I need someone to help me. Anyways, I will be heading out now. If you need anything, do hesitate to ask the innkeeper or one of the servants here, okay?" She nodded as she began to hum a tune, making Naruto freeze as the scene touched his very soul. He felt a stab of pain in his heart as he remembered he never been with his mother, and did not understand what it was like. He knew they loved him, but knowing was not enough sometimes. He crushed those emotions and left. As walked by the innkeeper, he told he to provide whatever his guest asked for, and he will pay for it. Naruto hid in an alley as he performed the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, and then he and the clones used Henji no Jutsu. He transformed in a fat and wealthy merchant, while the Kage Bunshin transformed into samurai guards. They all walked towards a very busy marketplace, and bought a large empty store that was for sale. He paid the more than happy property owner and got the place by a fake name. He then left as walked into a dark alley and dispelled his clones and henge. He then went to the most famous publisher in Kyoto and sold them the first issues of Dakanjo Ninden and Ika Ika series, even though he still has the copyrights, and gained about 60% of the profits. It was a legal transaction just with the helpful use of the Kitsunetsuki. A couple of hours later, he returned to the inn and began to talk to Fumiko about the job he was offering her. He said, "Listen, Fumiko-chan. All I need you to do is manage a ramen restaurant instead of me, because I am nomad and I don't like to settle down in one place. You are the owner of that restaurant, and your most important job is to collect information for me. You are going to be my spy in Kyoto. If you hear anything interesting, you inform me immediately. I will give you later as a means to relay your information to me, understood?" She nodded and said, "Anything for you, Naruto-sama. It will be my honor to serve you in any way I can." She smiled at her and continued saying, "Good, and please don't tell any one of you other job, as it would be problematic for you then." He turned to go to his room and stopped as he faced her again. "Oh, I almost forgot." He started to remove his hood and mask and continued, "As a sign of trust, one will show you my true face, and I hope that you will keep this between us until the time is right." She stuttered as she saw his face and blushed like a teenager in love. He was a handsome young man with strange golden hair and ocean blue fox-like eyes. He had a manly chiseled face with 3 deep scars that gave him a foxy look. She was ogling him as he snapped her out of her stupor. He said, "Also, I would like it if you to gather the women that you trust and have them work in the ramen restaurant. They should be women who have problems that I can solve, okay?" She just nodded as let his words sink in. Naruto walked to the crib of the baby and examined him. He noticed that the boy has already developed a good amount of chakra for a baby. He will be a good ninja in the future. He walked to the door and said, "Good night, Fumiko-chan, and I will show you your restaurant tomorrow, okay?" "Hi, Naruto-sama, thank you for everything," as she stood a bit wobbly and bowed to Naruto in gratitude. Naruto smiled as he waved his hand, slid the door closed, and went to his room. Manyu Ninja Village. It was a week later. He found a couple of Manyu Kunoichi and followed them stealthily back to their village. It was a simple ninja village. He had spent another week spying on the members of the Manyu clan for a week now. There were 5 members to this clan. There were 3 females and 2 males. The 3 females were the eldest was Manyu Kyoka, followed by Manyu Kagefusa, and lastly but not the least clan heir of the Manyu clan, Manyu Chifusa. The males are their father, the clan head, Manyu Munenori, and his only son and second oldest sibling, Manyu Munyuki. Munenori was about 5 feet, 9 inches, tall with long white hair. He had black eyes and white mustache and goatee. Munenori wears a white overcoat, a tan kimono top, and a black hakama. He was an exact copy of Hyuga Hayashi, regal and sophisticated aristocrat with his actual battle experience under his belt. Naruto felt he could even use chakra, then again it was little and not like his. His son, Manyu Munyuki, looked like a much younger version of his father and had a beautiful young woman with him, named Sayama Uka. She appears to be his bodyguard. She was the same height and age as Chifusa. Uka has very long black hair, and wears a pink kimono with dark purple ends. She has black arm guards with dark purple wraps on her forearms and purple and white cloth on her upper arms. She usually wears a white cloak and has a nodachi sword strapped to her back. He studied her and noticed something odd about her other than being without breasts. Her chakra and energy flow was disrupted and to be leaking out of her body. This could be a very serious problem for her, as it could make her body weaker and eventually die. He will need to help if she accepts later. Ironically, what caught Naruto's eye was the beauty of all the 3 young women. They were all strong and beautiful. He almost went berserk due to his demonic urges. The eldest had a mature charm and beauty about her. She was Chifusa's kind-hearted oldest sister. She was a bit pale from staying inside and had large C-cup breasts hidden in her clothes and stood at about 5 feet, 8 inches tall. Kyoka has a heart-shaped face with green eyes and chest-length purple hair, and he has always seen in a full-length regal kimono, usually bright and colorful. She is the calmest person of her family, and despite her general mercy and good nature, she had a hidden animosity towards Chifusa. It was as if she was hiding some deep dark secret in her heart. Nevertheless, that was what drew him to her. Her dark spirit drew the demonic ninja like a moth to a flame. Next was Manyu Chifusa, the second daughter and third sibling of the Manyu clan. She stood at about 5 feet, 8 inches, to the same as her older sister. She also has a heart-shaped face, though her jaw and chin are a bit sharper than her sister's, giving her a more vicious look. In addition, she had beautiful light skin, even had a tribal painting on the left side of her face starting from above her left eye. She had pale white hair with yellow eyes. She had the largest pair of the 3 girls, which was about an F cup. She is more cruel and sadistic towards others, and tends to treat them harshly, especially the lesser endowed women and the poor. Chifusa wears a black unitard with thin feather-like protrusions on her shoulders, and her arms also. She has white arm guards, with black gloves and a white cloth wrapped around her waist. She has the same thigh highs as Chifusa, however. A little girl about 8 or 9, named Kokage, who had brown hair and similarly brown eyes, that appears to be her assistant and best friend, always accompanies her. The last and the youngest of her 4 siblings was Manyu Chifusa, who was successor of the Manyu clan. She was a beautiful young woman wearing a white kindogi with a black hakama. She stood at the height of 5 feet, 7 inches, had a breast cup of a rather large D cup. She had hazel eyes and dark blue hair, which is most of the time put up in a ponytail. She had a lovely heart-shaped face with light, healthy skin. Naruto found her very interesting, as she had a pure and innocent heart. She was like him as a genin, a hot-headed, rash, and temperamental ninja, but is incredibly loyal and kind-hearted. She was with her friend and attendant, Keed. Surprisingly, she is the first blonde-haired woman he saw since he got here. She had light purple eyes that shined a bit of mischief. She was a cute girl with a middle-sized D cup and wears a light purple kimono with a more dark purple on the ends, and light green arm guards, with thin dark purple armbands. She is a lot less serious than Chifusa. Despite the fact that she is Chifusa's underling, she still tends to give her friend orders, especially when it comes to managing money or picking fights. She also seems to be either love or really like Chifusa. He had already finished the first 2 parts of his plan in Kyoto. Now he needs to make contact with their father and leader as to start the second phase of his plan to change the system. He was very much like to have all 3 of them to make his plan work, but he first needed to meet their father, Manyu Munenori. Naruto smirked as he waited for their father to be alone in his study and made his presence known. Munenori's eyes widen as he felt the presence of someone suddenly appear behind him. He reaches over his sword and spins around to confront the man in the shadows. He then said in an angry voice, "Who's there? Show yourself." "Oh, congratulations, you found me." Out of the very shadows, a crimson kitsune masked man in a dark cloak appeared, as clapping as his voice oozed of sarcasm. Munenori raised a brow at the obviously dry reply and said, "Who are you and what are doing here?" As he drew out his sword, Naruto smiled, which was hiding behind his crimson kitsune mask, and said, "I will tell you my name later, as it is not important now, and as to why I am here. I came just to discuss with you something of great importance, Munenori-san, so it would be better if you sheath your sword." The older man did not believe nor lower his weapon and charges in a masked man in an attempt to behead him. Naruto stopped the blade inches from his neck with his index finger. The elder man's eyes widened in shock, as not only did he stop his usually fatal strike but did so with a single finger. The masked man spoke, saying, "Listen, Munenori-san, would you mind removing your sword from in front of my face? Otherwise I might have to stuff that sword of yours down your throat. Besides, if I wanted to kill you I can do it any time I wanted." Seeing the logic in his words, the Lord of Japan removed his sword while not lowering his guard. "So what is it you want to speak to me about?" inquired the elderly lord with caution in his voice. "Oh, that? I want to speak to you about your 3 daughters and your clan's future," replied the masked man. The lord was now terrified as to what this dark man need of his children and his clan. He could have read him if he could see his face, however the blasted mask prevented him from doing so. He knew now this man was more powerful than he was and could kill him just as easily as breathing. He was still trying to wrap his mind on how he could stop a full killing swing from a Kenjutsu master with a single finger. He still kept his famous poker-face stare as he asked, "Enough with these riddles and just say what it is you want." "Okay, but first I will have to show you something." As he released a concentrated blast of killing intent paralyzing Lord Munenori, The masked man vanished, then appeared by his side, and placed his hand on his shoulder, making both of them vanish. Outside Manyu village, the lord suddenly fell to the ground from the rapid movement, and stood up on his shaky legs with wide eyes. He peeked around in the darkness of the night with fear in his eyes and his hands still on his katana. He noticed that he was in the forest outside his village. As he was still trying to comprehend what just happened, he felt a presence on the side and swung impulsively. What happened next scared the living daylights out of the man. He heard a familiar clash of steel against steel and saw a pair of demonic red eyes staring straight at his own. The object that clashed with his sword was a black nodachi. The sword had a spiral tsuba with a black tsuka. The masked man held the weapon like a master, as used only one hand to hold him in place. He heard a feral growl coming from the man in the mask as he said, "I thought I told you to sheath your weapon, old man." He pushed his blade towards the old man with the force of an angry bull. The older man's eyes widened at this as he felt himself pushed back and flung aground. Before he could even blink, the tip of the black blade was in his face. The older man waited for his end with honor and dignity as a lord. The masked man surprised him yet again with pulling back the black sword and swinging it before sheathing it in a black saya on his back. "Now get up, old man. As I said earlier before you attacked, I am not here to kill you. I am here for a proposition that I would like to make with you and your clan. Now let me show you something extraordinary," said the masked man as he began forming gestures with his hand and then shouted, "Katan, Gokaku no Jutsu." The masked man drew in a deep breath. As his lungs seemed to expand, he blew out and released a large stream of fire that consumed many trees in the forest. The trees burned to ashes as the fire began to die out. Munenori was gasping with awe and fear at this. How is this possible? Is he a demon, a dragon, or something? I have never seen anything like this before. This man could actually destroy my village with a single breath, thought the old man. "Breath, old man," said the masked man sardonically. The lord forgot he was holding his breath as this terribly frightened and surprised him. He just sat there looking at the man with calculative stare as he tried to understand what he wanted from him. Surprisingly, the masked man began to speak and said, "Listen to me, old man. You can have my power and skill for your village as I have come to join your ninja village. I am the last of my clan and I will join you only if you do me one thing." The old lord thought at the opportunity of having such a weapon of such power under his power. He then said, "Name it, and it shall be yours. I can give you anything that you want, whether it be money, power, and women." "Anything?" parroted the masked man. "Yes, anything you want," replied the older man. "Hook, line, sinker," said as he mentally laughed and said, "All right then, I would like to take your 3 daughters as my wives, as I am the last of my clan and I would need strong women for that." The elder man's color changed to a much paler tone as he heard this. Could he just give this stranger his 3 daughters? He could give him 1 or maybe 2, but all 3 it was too much. However, the power the man showed him will help reinforce the strength of the Manyu clan for generations to come. His daughters or the power to stabilize all of Japan under Manyu rule. It was a difficult choice, but he had to make it as he never seen anything like what this man could do. Did he even know what more this man had to offer? Naruto then said, "Let me make myself clear. I will join you only if you give me your 3 daughters and start my own clan again. Also, this not all I can do if you give me a volunteer. I will show you more, and they are not as destructive as this." Naruto walked to the collapsed old man, grabbed his shoulder again, and disappeared again. Manyu clan residence. Again, the older man fell and collapsed to the floor as he began to dry heave from the unnatural fast movement. The old man opened his eyes, saw that he was back in his study and whispered, "What kind of magic is this?" "No magic, old man, but my clan's style of ninjutsu. While your clan is about the age of breasts, therefore you use breast-reducing swords and fighting style. My clan specializes in true ninja arts, which are ninjutsu, genjutsu, and finally taijutsu. Like the ninjas of Munenori village, I can control my inner chakra to produce jutsu like you so in the force. We even have sexual jutsu as well, and I will show you in just a minute." Naruto walked to the door of the study and cleared his voice as he began to change his voice like that of the old man. This shocked the old man to disbelief. How could he copy his voice and make it his own, he thought. The man was a perfect assassin. He could infiltrate any location and destroy it from the inside out. "Let Yasha come to my study immediately," said Naruto in Munenori's voice from behind the door. "Hi, Munenori-sama," said a female voice from the door. The older man asked in fear, "Young man, are you a human really?" The younger man said, I am a human, or technically was. You asked my name and I will tell you, but you will have to swear on your honor and the life of your entire village that you will not speak of it to anyone, until I say so. The elderly man surprised by his word, but he knew that his life and his village were in this man's hands since the very beginning, and thus swore, I, Manyu Munenori, leader of the Manyu clan, swear on my honor and the life of my village that I will take your secret to the grave until you say so. Good, now that we have this out of the way, let me introduce myself, said Naruto as he removed his mask and hood, revealing his rather young face to the elder man. The old leader was surprised at how young this young was. He could be between the ages of his two eldest children and commanded such power. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, and I am the last ninja from the Uzumaki clan. I have what we call a Kekkei Genkai, and as the name implies it is limited to bloodline of me and that of the people of my clan. It is called Kitsunetsuki, and I will show you what it. Munenori asked him, I never heard that name before. You will never again. My clan was a true follower of the shinobi code and therefore very well hidden, and no surprise you never heard of them, fibbed Naruto smoothly. He could not just say he was from a different dimension now, could he? He heard a feminine voice of asking for permission, which he granted in Munenori's voice. Entered a beautiful young woman a year or two younger than him. She had ruby red hair. She was about 5 feet 10 inches tall, with a very large pair of bouncy and juicy breasts, which were a very large J-cup. They bounced as she entered and bowed before the older man, not even registering Naruto, who was leaning on the wall. She said, You needed my presence, my lord? He said, clearing his voice, Yes, I need you help, so this young man over here will show me something. She rose as she turned to see this man. She saw a very tall. She was sure he was the tallest man she had ever seen. He was about 6 feet in height, maybe even taller. He had strange blonde color, as it was like the sun in brightness, and had a masculinity oozing out of his chiseled face. Her face began to heat up as a very red blush appeared in it. The blonde stranger said, My name is Naruto, and I need to test one of my abilities, so Yasha-san, would you please look into my eyes? She did and gasped. As his eyes turned crimson with fox-like slits, however, she could not look away from them as she stiffens. Then she began to feel her body heat up as her blush reached her ears. She began to moan and gasp at what was happening to her body. Her loins and breasts began to warm up in unbearable itch and heat. She wanted to move her hands to her nether regions to calm down this raging inferno, but she could not move a muscle. She felt her skin being softly caressed by hundreds of hands, massaging and sending jolts of electric pleasure through her entire body. She felt like someone was sucking, pinching, teasing, and playing her large breasts at the same time. She started to pant like a dog in heat as her eyes gained a dazed look as she began to rub her inner thighs against each other. Naruto noticed her love juices leaking down her legs and drenched her fundoshi and stockings. She felt electric jolts from her breasts and lower lips as she began to lose strength, and she even began to dribble. She began to feel like someone was touching and fondling her lower lips, making it even wetter than it already was. Her mind went blank and her legs could not hold her as she fell on her knees. She felt a weird knot in her stomach that she felt for the first time. She felt it tighten and her hidden clitoris erect from the front of junction of her labia minora, straining her fundoshi. She felt her every first orgasm as her body fell to the ground, her back arched, and her body strained and legs stretched. She then passed out from the overload of sexual pleasure she had received. Naruto turned to old man and said, This jutsu is called Kitsunetsuki. Ten no Saitiki Kaiken, spirit possession, heavenly sexual pleasure. This technique allows the user to make the target experience the most divine sexual experience in their entire life. It increases the sensitivity of the target's body to the max, making them climax easily. However, the side effect of this technique is that the target would hopelessly fall in love with the user, seek them out to become their lover. He walked to the sleeping girl, grabbed her like a young woman at her wedding. The Lord was have trouble keep from having a geyser of nose blood from what he had just witnessed. He still listened and absorbed all that heard and said, Are you sure you're human? Is there a reason why that technique you just used called spirit possession? Why would you join us when you could easily destroy us and rule all of Japan yourself? Naruto smirked as began to laugh, confusing the old man. Let me answer you with last one first, and the rest in that order. I do not want to rule, nor do I want the hassle of killing a whole village just so I can rule. All I want is to secure my clan and having many wives to help secure that. Naruto sighed as he said, Do you know this kind of ruling that breast equals wealth is wrong as it is ridiculous? He sighed again and continued saying, Women are equal but opposite to men. In the end, This kind of society will fall and start a new war. This new war would wipe out your entire clan, Hidenjutsu, your power and influence. I am a powerful shinobi and I can and will protect you and your entire clan by myself, but you must change this system. You do know the shogunate is not immortal and the next one might change everything. Why would that change anything? Asked Munenori with a cruel stare. Because history and life both tend to be the most destructive when humans are stubborn and against change, said the blonde ninja. Then unexpectedly, the village alarm resonated, indicating a ninja trying to flee from the village. Naruto sighed as said, like I said, things tend to get messy if you fight against it. Just like what is happening right now, however, do not forget what is between us. As I will be waiting for your answer, I will take my leave now, old man, but remember one thing. Never think of betraying me as the consequences will be quite severe. Then with that, Naruto disappeared with the girl in his hands, leaving the old man to his thoughts. Outer borders of the Manyu village, a warning whistle heard indicating a fleeing attempt was now in progress. The route that leads out of the village began teeming with torch-wielding kunoichi from the village, who were looking for the deserter. Naruto stood on the highest tree as he began to observe the escapee with his powerful vision, and was not surprised when he saw that it was none other than the 3rd and youngest daughter of the village leader, Manyu Chifusa. Even though she was wearing a ninja headgear, he could still identify her with her hazel eyes. She was running at her top speed trying to escape as the generic kunoichi from the village tailed her. Chifusa wears a white scarf with a loose red kimono with the top slightly open, and she has a cloth wrap underneath it to conceal the actual size. She also has black arm guards with dark blue gloves underneath, as well as dark blue thigh highs accompanied by sandals. Almost at the bridge, a couple of kunai were thrown at her which she deflected using her arm guards. 2 kunoichi appeared out of the bushes and attacked Chifusa. Naruto was a bit impressed as she defeats her opponents with a single strike of her sword and continued to run towards the bridge. She made a couple of steps before another kunoichi appeared and attacked her. It was her friend Kid, and she cut her mask and helmet revealing Chifusa's face. Naruto tree-hopped to get a closer look at the scene and he could hear them talk. Is that you, Kid? As she dodges the sword slashes. Why are you leaving our village, Chifusa-sama? Cried out a desperate Kid. Not able to answer her, Chifusa turned and ran towards the bridge, ignoring Kid's pleas to take her with. Then halfway on the bridge, Naruto heard a loud bang and it sounded like thunder, yet closer and much smaller. He noticed that Chifusa froze as she held her side in pain. Upon closer inspection, Naruto saw that she was indeed injured. It was luckily a simple flesh wound, as the small object that penetrated her side did not touch any of her important organs. It was from this strange weapon they have here, a firearm or a gun or rifle as they usually call. Chifusa fell into the ravine and the river below. Naruto cursed as he made a Kage Bunshin, and it went speeding off to save the young woman from drowning. He saw the shooter and smirked, as he would have a bit of fun. He used the Shunshin no Jutsu. Manyu Chifusa was smirking as Kid shouted at her for killing the clan heir. She had just given her rifle to kunoichi next to her. She turned to reply to Kid as she said, I did not shoot to kill her, and besides she would not be defeated that easily. Che. Now I have more work to do because of her. A shadow appeared behind Chifusa. As none of them even noticed him yet, he placed his hands on Chifusa's body as she gasped in shock with a little excitement. She tried to get out of his grip, but his strength surprised her greatly. This brought the attention of the kunoichi towards Chifusa. His hands made her feel like he was admiring her as if she was a masterpiece of art. The other kunoichi, including Kid, blushing bright red and gasped at what they saw. They saw a very tall man in a hood with a nodachi sword strapped to his back playing with Chifusa's body like it was his. They heard him growl, and next they knew they were on the ground. They thought of attacking him when they saw his crimson demonic eyes and felt his killing aura had frozen them all, and they fell on their knees from its pressure. The only one standing was the man and Chifusa, who did not even register the killing intent, as she was busy moaning and whimpering in the man's hands like a woman full of desire. Chifusa felt his strong hands, arms, and chest on her body, and she knew he was a strong warrior. Chifusa was angry, oh so very angry that this warrior, whoever he is, he had the balls to grab her as if she was his woman. She would not admit it to anyone, however. This man's actions turned her on. No one would even look at her due to her fearsome personality, and being of the Manyu clan as well as there was no man stronger than she was. She loved strong men as her father was. She moaned as he placed his hand underneath her unitard and grabbed one of her triple D breasts, twisted her nipple, and squeezed it a bit. He dragged his other hand on her stomach, making circles with his fingers, creating many jolts of pleasure and bliss. She was sweating, drooling, and panting with her tongue out as she quivered in his strong grasp. Her butt began to subconsciously rub and knead his body furiously as if telling him to take her now. She could not believe that she was actually doing this with a total stranger. She then received a sweet kiss and several licks to the nape of her neck as another stream of electricity passed through her body. She felt her body releasing a flood of wetness as she felt that she would lose the last of her resistance. The man stroked her nether regions, causing her jerk a bit at the touch. The man behind her laughed a deep masculine laugh as he turned her to face him. She would have blushed if she were not already, as she saw his very manly and handsome face and his ocean blue eyes. She saw the look in his eyes that told her of undeniably large amounts of lust and desire for her, and that surprised her. The man licked his lips as he got down and fused his lips with hers. His tongue invaded her mouth as it claimed every part of it as its own, and she surrendered herself to him. She moaned loudly as she climaxed, making her body come with the force of a sledgehammer. She stares blankly as she saw stars as he body jerked a bit as she finally pasted out to an orgasmic coma. He removed his hand from her sweet spot and tasted her sweet nectar as he growled out, "Ah, perfect, she is a virgin, a sweet virgin ninja girl." He smirked, smiled, and then he laughed aloud as he thought of the things he would do to her later. His white teeth glimmered in the moonlight as he laughed. He lifted Chifusa's limp body and he placed a jutsushiki on her back and hit it using his chakra. He kissed her again and received a moan from his unconscious woman, then walked to a couple of kunoichi on the ground and orders them, "Take her back to her room." He handed her over to them and simple disappeared into the darkness. Keith then said, "Wow, but do you guys who that was?" The other kunoichi shook their heads in the negative as carried blissfully unconscious Chifusa and walked back to the village. She remembered her friend and tried to escape to rescue her, but the other girls caught her and tied her up as they dragged her back to the village riverbank. Naruto's Kage Bunshin found and saved Chifusa. As not to let her wound worse, it carried in bridal style and walked slowly. She would open her eyes a bit before closing them again. The clone needs to find a secure place before his creator could heal her. The Kage Bunshin was water walking until it found a white stone riverbank and walked to it. It sighed as it said, "Boss, what the hell is taking you so long?" It carried uphill and found a dusty old road and surprisingly a young woman wearing a dull orange kimono with dark brown ends and yellow stripes going down vertically with a straw basket on her back. He asked her, "Ano, Shoujo-san?" This startled her as she turns quickly and almost falling to the ground. She gasped when she see a giant holding a wounded woman in his arms. He was wearing a hood and had a nodachi sword strapped to his back. She was scared as she thought he was some kind of murderer or something. The giant of a man chucked as he said, "No need to be afraid of me. I just saved this young woman from the river and I need a place to heal her wounds. Do you know where the closest town is?" The girl relaxed, showing that she believed him, and said, "Oh, sorry, Samurai-san, the closest town is a couple of days' walk from here. She might die if you do not treat her right away, therefore, come to my home and treat the woman there. It's not far from here as it is just up this hill." Taken aback by her honest and kind words, Naruto was surprised that she was so kind to a stranger. He promised that he would do anything she wanted later as thanks for her sincere kindness. Naruto smiled a grateful smile as he bowed his head a bit and said, "I thank you for your hospitality, and if I can I will definitely repay your kindness." She paused a bit, and then said, "Oh, there is no need, Samurai-san." She began to lead the way to her cottage. Naruto then said, "Oh, please, I insist, I will do anything you want, but first, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. Would you grace me with your name, my young and beautiful lady?" She blushed as nobody would look at her, much less flirt with her, and turned away from his face. She stuttered a bit, and said, "My name is Uzumaki-san." He smiled as she reminded him of Hinata, then he noticed something wrong with her chakra. As he followed her, he noticed that her chakra was leaking in the same way as that samurai girl in the Manyu village. He filed that bit of info for later. Now all he had to do is waiting for the boss. To be continued.